Good day, everyone. And I would like to thank the coordinators, co-conveners, and all those who work for this conference to happen. I am Eulalia M. Tome. I graduated from Solgang University, South Korea, last February. So I would like to present to you a part of my dissertation, which is entitled Analyzing the Prayers of Filipino Migrants in South Korea through the lens of Frederick Heiler's perspective. And I have to make this video short because we're given 20 minutes and I still have my partner, his Ngodang Tuan, to also present and explain to you about the religious feelings. So I have to explain first about the title because we collected the prayers, written prayers, nameless prayers in the field, and we are analyzing those prayers according to religious feelings. So that is the lens of Frederick Heiler. So we explain prayer that is coming from the feelings that we have. So we're using all the senses. We're using all the um, subjective, yan, emotions, feelings, kung ano yung nararamdaman. So yun yung ipinapaliwanag dito ni Frederick Heiler. And first, I would like to say first the research objectives, the study of Filipino migrants' prayer in South Korea, and the content of the Filipino migrants' prayer in Frederick Heiler's psychological explanation of prayer, whose core theory is the religious feelings and renews the gazes on the prayer of migration and globalization. So what are the significance? So why we're doing this type of research? Okay, to fill the gap and renew Heiler's theory and prayer, especially the missing Catholic prayers in his account, to discover the dominant prayer of the Filipino migrants in South Korea and its uniqueness among any other Catholic prayer practices, to explore the religious feelings that fuel the Filipino migrants' prayer, to spell out the function of prayer in the Filipino migrants' pains and struggles, to examine the joy and glory in their prayers and religious experience. So it is quite ambitious research, but the significance of this study is adding to the reservoir of knowledge about prayer in the psychology of religion and as well to help the Korean society in understanding the presence of the migrants is to help them in integrating the mainstream culture. So it helps in sending the sending and receiving countries to craft policies that are mutually supportive and beneficial on the side of the migrants, which may include the protection of the human rights and dignity of labor. And it may also help those who are in the care or who are in charge of the migrants for psycho-spiritual guidance, especially for those who are giving retreats, for those who are giving recollections, and even to those who are having an individual group of prayer, or even in our very personal prayer life, how are we understanding bakit ako nagdadasal? Okay. So to continue, this study can be a core guide in journeying the self. So ika nga, the longest journey is the journey within. So the content is self-liberating, especially for those whose spirituality is in bondage of dogma. So you already know what do I mean by dogma. So I mean it as those who are bandaged in theology, those who are in bandage of the control of a certain religious beliefs. Pinoprotektahan ang ideolohiya. So those who are protecting ideologies instead of protecting the human being, instead of understanding human suffering or understanding the feeling, the core of the human being. So this study provides spiritual nourishment to a deeper meaning of spiritual life, especially the journey within the self, and psychospiritual healing and well-being that the present time is needing most. So this study, most importantly, offers understanding and tolerance in religion, an aid for ecumenism and interreligious dialogue, peace and harmony of creation through the universality of religious feelings common to all religions. So uh, it aids to re-examine the human place and contribution as brothers and sisters of all creation, to practice prayer that embraces pluralism in a global society and renews one's own tradition and opens the door to diversity. So the study would inculcate in the minds and hearts of the people the spirit of nonviolence, ecology, love for creation, love in action, and reconciliation, which are important to quench the psycho-spiritual hunger and thirst of humanity. So what we did is a qualitative and also quantitative approach. So we have a dual approach in this. The first one is the systematic review method. So we are squeezing uh, the psychological explanation of Friedrich Heiler, and also we are also reviewing the literature about Filipino migrants prior. So we have here, if we're going to squeeze together the psychological explanation of Friedrich Heiler, so we get total the religious feeling. So, ano ang nararamdaman ko kapag ako ay nagdadasal? Ano ba ang hinihingi ng aking nararamdaman? Ika nga, we have the voice from within us. That is, those are the claimers. Those are the senses, okay, that are not being heard. Okay, so prayers of the Filipino migrants, we also put that together in order to understand fully what is the religious feelings. So to understand fully, bakit ako nananalangin, bakit ako nagdadasal. So in my participant observation, I have collected some of this Filipino religiosity. So we always have the cross, the Mama Mary, the Santo Niño, and these are all the altars of the Filipino migrants here in South Korea. So sari-sari, no, we have all, hindi ito masama. These are all, we call it the materiality in religion. You know, materiality is something that is tangible, something that could represent ourselves, something that would represent our own suffering. And that is why we have the cross, we have the Blessed Virgin Mother, because she is most of all the sufferer in all the suffering of Jesus Christ. So apart from the other materiality, we also have the healing materials. Our longing, so we always long for this sort of healing. Would it be physical healing or psycho-spiritual healing? A healing that are all defined according to feelings. When we have peace, when we are in love, when we feel joy, and those are called the healing that we can get out of religion. So we have here the charismatic, Al Shaddai charismatic movement. I went to their core group in Seoul. This is during the winter time, and that is why we are dressing up this way. And it seems that I am using the same clothes since before. Anyway, so this is just, you can see they are migrants. They are migrants, and when they pray, they always have this shining faces. And these happy faces you can see, even though they are already laden with all the burden from their job, from the language, and etc. But you can see when they pray, they have light spirit, and their faces are always smiley. So this is a miracle. I call it a miracle because Filipinos know how to smile at their problems, know how to sing and dance with their problems. So these are also an example of the El Shaddai. This is still part of the religious materiality that I collected in the fields. We can see here the prayer of protection, and this is very important prayer. I think when we feel that we are safety, please guide me, Lord. Please send your angel to guide me. So for them, this Psalm 91 is the thing that they get their inner strength, okay, getting from the meaning of prayer. And I will not be explaining to you one by one what is the meaning of this, but it's only the core why these people needs to have this handkerchief in their pockets. Okay, we have this kind of culture in the Philippines, which I may have this term it a punas religiosity. So punas because when we care, we did punas. When we love, we did punas. And the most tangible thing that we can just keep it in our pocket, apart from the rosary. So I have also here the rosary with me because I am a Catholic. Uh, so it is all there that we, because of this material, we feel secure. We believe that if we have this, we are cleansed. Okay. And next one is the sinolog. So this is the Filipino religiosity that goes throughout the world. So this is coming from our very own culture. This is not coming from the West because our Catholicism is a Roman Catholicism. But this sinolog ritual is coming from the Philippines, and it goes into the Filipino diaspora. It is being spread through the Filipino diaspora. It is becoming famous around the world because it represents the Filipino culture. And it also goes back to the first Christianity that we have. So this image of Santo Niño is the gift of Ferdinand, who is that? Magellan, okay? Ferdinand Magellan, Turaha Humabon's wife. So that is why when we can think of Filipino, we can also think of this is my religious identity. This is my religious culture. And you can see in the Sinulog dances, they are using this kind of a shaman craft, a Filipino way of dressing up. So it is not about the Roman Catholicism, but it is about a purely Filipino culture. And this is the place where the Filipino used to celebrate masses, 3,000 Filipinos, because this is the center of Seoul. We call this area Hiwadong. So Filipinos kneeling during the Holy Mass, okay, and then at the other side, the Filipino volunteers are also praying before they have to serve the Holy Mass. So I took this picture 2021, I think, during the pandemic. That is why you can see and observe the social distancing among each other, and they are also wearing the mask. So these are the example of the written prayers that we have collected in the field. So Father God, thank you for giving me changes to give my uh, hindi ko na mabasa kung ano man ito, to strong faith and God blessed my family. So, ganyan po ang mga collection nating prayer. So, teachers know how to read mga handwrittens. Diba? Ganito ang mga sulat. So, mga Dear Lord letters. Okay, mga ganito. So, ito na po yung ating nakolekta. Kasi kanina, when I explained about the method, it was a qualitative and also a quantitative because we are counting their prayers. Yung sasabihin kasi po natin na objectivity and subjectivity, there are two things that are intertwined in each other. There is always subjectivity in objectivity, especially in the field of humanities. Kahit sasabihin man natin, the number is telling the exact thing. One, any number cannot represent the entire reality. And also, what we are counting here is prayer, and prayer in itself is subjective. So, are we making the subjective into objective? But that is not our problem here. But we are trying to make the majority. So, what is the majority prayer of the Filipino migrants? So, it says that it is the intercession, the petition. So, when you are asking, and also the Thanksgiving prayer. So, we will explain that later. So, where this Thanksgiving came from. Okay, so I will not be discussing much, but I will go immediately to the conclusion because my partner will explain the religious feeling why we pray because of Thanksgiving, and from Thanksgiving we have this kind of altruistic sympathy for our neighbor, and after the altruistic sympathy we have this kind of sense of piety, and that is what we are doing. Tayo ng mga Pilipino, we have this kind of utang na loob, a debt that cannot be paid off, especially to God and to our parents. And I always emphasize the reciprocity that we cannot just be a parasite, we cannot just be the end user of all that is, but when we ask, when we receive the blessing, we also reciprocate. We reciprocate to God in a form of prayer, in a form of a sacrifice, in a form of service, as well to our neighbor. When somebody is doing good to us, we are also obliged, we have the responsibility, this moral sense. Yan, sasabihin kong moral sense because it is really coming from the religious feeling that we still have to go and return back the good deeds that we give to our neighbor, or the neighbor is giving to us. Sorry for that. It was a kind of confusion. Okay, so for the conclusion, so the Filipino migrants, although marked by multiple displacement, show some layer of resiliency in appropriating global structures and develop characters needed for adaptation, using prayer as coping mechanism and living at the host society. So their prayers, like the narrative. Okay, I use the narrative because what we are emphasizing here is the meaning making of the narrative. And prayer in itself is a daily narrative. Like when I say, Lord, today I presented a research in Pashar at the Catanduanes, and it was so successful, Lord. Thank you. So this is just a simple narration of what I did during the day. Alam mo, Lord, may kaaway po ako. Para ka lang nagsusumbong. So it is always a narrative of your story. You are telling your story to somebody whom you can trust, to somebody who is not judging you, but embracing you with all the love, for example. So this is why prayer is very important. Okay, psychologically, it is um, a mechanism to adapt into the environment, or it is a mechanism for resistance. Okay, it is the work of our emotions, the work of our subjectivities, the work of the largest organ in our body, the skin, because we are using the skin as the I explained it in this research that the skin is the trapper. So because this is the boundary between your outside world and your inner world. So the most thing that is not explored uh, the, is the inner world because it cannot be seen, but it can be felt. Okay, it can be felt, and it is also expressed into action in our behavior, in the way we pray, in the way we work. So So much for that. I have to read more. The conclusion. So their prayers, like the narrative of their personal story, have proven their faith and hope in facing the daily challenges. As a minority culture, their prayer gatherings have given them a rendezvous of co-ethnic groups to unwind, to speak their language, and to taste the homeland food, expressing identity and belonging. So the Sinolog, uh, okay, the prayer of petition, thanksgiving, uh, because I cannot see it because of this. Okay, the Sinolog ritual prayer presented above, not only proving that prayer is dynamically aesthetics and not just the silent and oral prayers that are common to Western prayers. The promise to offer a prayer, giving of gifts, an offering, or sacrifice is present in Filipino migrants, but the uniqueness of their vow or promise to God is to dance the Santo Niño when their prayer are answered. So, yung mga sumasayaw sa Santo Niño, namamata, yan, those are people whose prayers are answered. For example, help me Lord because I wanted to take the licensure examination for teachers, and since they pass, the licensure examination, they go to Cebu and they have this they lighted a candle and they participated in the dances. Okay, so those are just some of the example. So the Santo Niño devotion also spells the difference between the Filipino Catholics and other Catholics around the world, as the devotion to the child Jesus with its syncretic blend of Filipino folk animism, a devotion that is coming from the Philippines, becomes the identity of Filipinos in diaspora who not only reinvent and recreate their tradition but also show the Sinulog ritual prayer dance in Filipino Day and other cultural programs. So makikita nyo, may mga, especially those who are coming from Cebu or coming from other parts of the Philippines, they bring with them the altar that I have shown you earlier shows that they brought this Santo Niño in their luggage and they place an altar when they arrive abroad. And this is something that they are giving importance to where they can divert their negative energies. Okay? Doon sa kanilang panalangin. So the prayer of petition, thanksgiving, being the dominant prayer, is also observed in their prayer gatherings like the Holy Mass, their grandest celebration of thanksgiving that unites all forms of their prayers from charismatic, bodily kinesthetic, sinolog ritual prayer dance, and devotional prayers as forms of thanksgiving and petition that wells up from the human motivations, desires, and necessity to enhance life. Most prayers are for life that utters blessings for themselves, their families, and for the wider society. Filipinos claim their identity as Filipino Catholics and not a Roman Catholic because of the religious syncretism that intricate the traditional motive of the religious practices. So in the part two, the religious feelings. So this is the explanation of the religious feeling according to the observation in the Filipino migrants prayer. The mystical feeling. The mystical feeling and freedom is not a new definition, but it is re-emphasized through the aesthetic contemplation of the migrants' artworks and the writings of song lyrics that recalls how William James, Rodolph Otto, and Frederick Hyler's corpus interprets the religious feelings as mysticism, a feeling of freedom to explore the vast universe within the human being. So the feeling of absolute dependence, childlike piety, awe, and wonder is also made possible in Filipino migrants' realization of nothingness and weakness, a realization that they have uh, an ambit of strength. Masasabihin kasi nating ambit of strength, my strength is limited. I am not a superpowered woman. No, I when I come to an old age, my strength is limited. My time is limited. My consciousness is limited. And This is also a way of also teaching us that we cannot colonize the whole world. We cannot save the whole world. And we can only save the people who are under our care because of the limit of our strength, our time, and also our consciousness. So let me, I don't know how to move this one. The longing and yearning. Okay, the longing and yearning. Why I wanted to pray? I felt that I wanted to be alone. So this is a very important feeling because this is a mystical feeling in itself. Like the feeling of missing to prayer, which is connected to the migrants' nostalgic feeling. Ano ba ang nasa isip ng mga migrants? To go back home, to go back to the place of comfort, to go back to the place where they can speak their own language, to eat their own food, and the sense of being safe and being protected with a family and familiar place. So, yung pagpunta nila sa simbahan, for example, when they go to church, this is very important for them because this is their home away from home. So the first question of a migrant when they go abroad is that where they can find a church. Okay? And this is very meaningful for them because they do not only want to find no, this Filipino people or something that is familiar to them, but they wanted to find that someone with a big S. The Filipino migrants who want to find a church where they can pray during their stay in a foreign land can be interpreted as the search for a home, a familiar place, a familiar prayer that they used to do in the homeland, just like the Israel in exile, when they cannot bring a bloody sacrifice, when they cannot do the familiar prayer to God, they were yearning for home and the God of their home, which means that the yearning for God is the yearning to return home. And this yearning to return home is going home to the self. When one misses to pray, it indicates that one misses his own self. Okay. Uh, Maybe this is the end of my uh, presentation because I cannot move the slide and I will be uh, asking the facilitator of the conference to also play the video recording of my partner, the one, and he is also an expert in religious feeling. So those who are scholars in psychology of religion explains prayer and human interiority, relational interiority according to religious feelings. Thank you for listening and mabuhay.